So that has been, my experience. Then this week's Torah portion actually includes the Torah ritual, which is, it's in Parshat Hukat. Chok means like a law that's a law, and it starts out by telling the ritual that exists at that time. It's called the ashes of the red heifer. Probably some of you know about this. What is the priesthood are to find and slaughter a perfectly red heifer, a female 1-year-old cow, and then to burn it in a pure place outside of the camp, and into the fire to throw cedar, which is the tallest tree of that area, and azov, which is like something that grows in the cracks of walls and things, and very lowly, and scarlet thread. And then those ashes, whenever somebody has been, I'll read you how they're used. This is when someone has, say someone has died in your tent or in your house or something, or when you visit a grave. I mean, they had a more superstitious, I think, sense of the intensity of contact with death than we perhaps do, but nevertheless, it's a huge event when it happens close to you. So a pure person, in other words, in the terms of Jewish ritual, to be in contact with a dead person renders one ritually impure, right? And so there's a purification process to restore the person to ritual purity so they can participate in all of the rites of the community. For me, I think the meaning is very much changed. I don't think of contact with the dead as something like, ew, like that kind of impurity or anything. I just think it's like, it's totally destabilizing, when your mother dies or when your partner dies or something like that. Even your next door neighbors, and it's an event. And that instead of this ritual, which I'm going to, go into a few of the details of, we have the ritual of a Shiva minion, right? And I think that just as, they say, well, instead of the temple sacrifice, we have prayer. We have the liturgy of prayer as a way to come close to the divine. So instead of this particular red heifer ashes ritual of purification, we have Shiva minions. And this one lasts a week too. It's very interesting. It says, a pure person shall take hyssop. It's a bundle of reeds. It's the same thing that in the Pesach ritual, they were to take hyssop and dip it in the blood of the slaughtered lamb and put it on the lintel of the door. So with hyssop, dip it in the water, which has this ash that's been put into it, and sprinkle it upon the tent and all the vessels, all the people who were there, and everyone. And the person shall do it again on the 3rd day, and then on the 7th day again. And then that's the completion of the time for the ritual. And anyone who has done that then re-enters the community, and anyone who hasn't is still, considered an outsider. And it says, and this is an eternal statute. You have to. And one of the things that's interesting is it says that the person who does the sprinkling also becomes ritually impure, which one time I heard Jonathan Omerman give a drash on that and the process of doing psychotherapy or doing spiritual direction. And what he said is that you know, he made an analogy how if you do that kind of deep counseling, intimate work, people, that you take on something that you have to purify yourself from in some way to restore yourself to presence, your own presence. And that's really what for me, contact with death, even, you know, participating in a Shiva minion and hearing the stories, just being the witness, one absorbs a strong energy. And I think it's very vivifying, but it also can be destabilizing because it's not connected to the concerns of daily life, right? It's connected to, you know, death humbles us all and puts us in our place, both in the sense of, hey, we're mortal, and this is like, you know, a slice here, but also in the sense of it vivifies the feeling of the preciousness of life and the preciousness of loving other people and of close relationships. So the Red Heifer Ritual, you know, Rashi has this whole drash on it that he gives in the name of Reb Moshe Hadarshan, Reb Moshe who gave drashot, is what it means, who gave drashas, the preacher, kind of like a Magid, right, from 11th century Provence, which was really one of the seminal places for Kabbalah, was northern Spain, northeastern Spain, and southern France and southwestern France. That was a huge center of Kabbalistic growth. So this was a preacher and a rabbi from that time, a Magid. And so what he says that the red heifer represents the golden calf, you know, that the people of Israel carry it's almost like original sin, the way Rashi talks about it. It's like some of this sin is in all the people of Israel. But to me, I'm like, okay, the golden calf is like fear. It's the idolatry of fear and of what my ego can fixate upon under the influence of fear. Where's Moses? He's at the top of the mountain. Or, you know, in the case of someone who dies, like, where'd they go? What does it mean? We don't know. You know, it puts us into a place of radical unknowing, which is it undoes our egotism. And it can, if I'm identified with my ego at that time, it can feel intolerable to have to deal with the loss or what one feels about it. And that's why I think the ritual of being in community and being witnessed and telling the stories about that person and your feelings, and like Jose was saying, Jose and Julie led the Minion last night, and one of the things that really came out was how you're going to feel everything. You know, you feel your love for the person, and you feel your loss of that person, and there's a way in which all of our losses stack up on each other and resonate with each other. And that is both losses of the people we've loved who've died, but also, you know, other kinds of losses. loss of a dream, of a relationship, of health, of something. Those, it's all in that same territory. So in addition to the ashes of this red heifer that, you take maybe as, that's my egotism. That's the whole bundle of my attachments and dreams and everything. And then with the cedar, which is like the most majestic tree of the Middle East, and this lowly plant, and a red scarlet thread. It's like the highest and the lowest. And that, instead, like in its tzitzits, there's, instead of a scarlet thread, right, there's a patil tchelet. There's a turquoise thread, which is a certain kind of connection to heaven, to the divine, to mindfulness of the big picture. But the scarlet thread is more like a, reminder of the passion of life, the fire of life, and how it burns and how it burns out. And so, clearly the Jewish tradition, gives a lot of kavod to the dead and to the process of mourning. It recognizes that as an important way of supporting individuals in the community, and also like bonding the community together, because we hear each other's stories in a way that we probably wouldn't otherwise. Welcome. So not only the Jewish tradition, but other traditions also have very strong rituals and practices around death. And, like I know in some African villages, the mourning person will be surrounded and be called in to dance in the communal dance of the community after there's been other rites. And the mindfulness of death, like in some certainly in Tibetan Buddhism, it's like one of the key vehicles for awakening consciousness is the realization of the transience of life, which really puts us in that place of what's important is now. Now is what is the only thing that we have. And we don't really have it, but we're in it. And if we let ourselves, we're in it in a very good way. I mean, now is, in some way, it's a container for our being and all of our different feelings and emotions. And I don't know if any of you read the Carlos Castaneda books, the Don Juan books. He talks a lot about death as an advisor, that death, is sort of like a presence over one's shoulder, or he encourages it, that awareness as a way of keeping in mind the scale of one's life and what's important and what's not. When Laura Goldman gave this great drash on Yom Kippur about 3 or 4 years ago about look, there's Laura and then there's deathbed Laura. That's what she called it. And when I'm on my deathbed, what will I think about this? I try to consult deathbed Laura when I'm in confusion about what I need to do or how to proceed. So that's really the long and short of the meditation that I want to lead us into, invoke. There's a the sort of like the flip side or the other pole at the other end of the continuum of the person who has sustained a loss through death, being surrounded by community. The other pole of that is there's a way in which the reality of death places each of us in complete aloneness. There's a solo quality to it. No one can die my death or be with me somebody can be with you when you're dying, but they're left behind and you go. And that's, each of us will, go to our own place, and, may it be a good place. My own what can I say? I feel that what my life is teaching me is that it's a fantasy to worry about what happens after death. It's important to live fully now, and that each moment is a portal to that deeper place. And probably most of you have heard the teaching, like in Hebrew, the way of referring to what people usually call this the afterlife, ha'olam haba. Means ha'olam means eon, and haba means that is coming. And that term in Hebrew is often translated as hereafter, but the mystics translate it as the world that is coming here. It's like, it's not coming late. If it's coming at all, it better come now, for my own experience and participation in it. So just as Joss was saying, how all the different feelings, some people were really sad, and one of the sons was really in this state of kind of like ecstasy, really, I think, from his mother being released, and he loved his mother and released his feeling for her. And one of her daughters, she seemed to be in a more struggly place, and probably there was, I'm just guessing, some unresolved stuff that then one is left with. So all of that, and that's all with different people from Talia's life, Ray and her two children. But bringing it into ourselves, we have all of those things. Just intense love for, say, our mothers or for someone, and really struggly feelings with some of the people we love most. Often when we're really close to people, it can be so hard to make separations or untangle expectations or reactions and all of those things. And so the invitation is for, it's like the container of the heart, Chochmat HaLev, the wise heart, the heart that is open and caring and that can make contact with the different voices, with the different feelings, the different impulses that exist in all of us. And, listening to a drash about the awareness of mortality and, some of the stories that I've told, of course, that sort of, keys into those places in each of us. I trust that, because it's something that we all share. It's part of our most the way in which we really are one, the way in which we really are interconnected, comes to the surface in those situations of being touched by a death, being very aware of how precious life is and how perilous it is.